Hey, everybody, this is Jimmy Smith. Welcome to another episode of the Biblical Business Leaders Podcast. Today, I'm excited to be coming back to you after a couple weeks layoff with another episode, a topic that is something that I've been doing for a couple years now, thanks to a friend and mentor of mine named Josh Tolley, who I actually had on one of the first few episodes of this podcast. So if you want to go back, you can listen to my interview with him. But he also wrote the book Evangelpreneur, which is one of my favorite biblical business books that exist out there, and it's been very instrumental in my life. And one of those things in the book I'm going to talk about today, which is basically finding your why or finding your vertical alignment, however you want to call it. It's something that is very impactful. It might sound weird, but it's really not. And it's a very basic task that I wanted to kind of assign to you all for homework moving forward, because it helps in making small decisions, but it really helps in making big decisions a lot easier in your life. So before we get into that, let's start off with a prayer as usual. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for everyone listening to this podcast now and in the future. I just pray for blessings over all of their businesses, all of their families, their lives in every single way, that ultimately you speak to them and that you work through them and their businesses, and that you help them to either establish their business or help them to continue to grow their business in a biblical way, rooted in you, focused on spreading the message of the gospel, and focused on the right things and the right priorities. And I pray that this podcast episode blesses them today, that you speak through me in some way to the hearts of the listeners, and that ultimately this is something that they're able to work into their businesses and their lives on a consistent basis. Thank you so much for every blessing that you've placed in each one of our lives. And I just praise you and thank you. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen. So yeah, this topic, as I said, is something that comes from the book Evangelpreneur by Josh Tolley, and I'll put a link to the book in the show notes if you are interested in purchasing that. But it's called the vertical alignment, and it's one of my favorite tasks. So this might be something that is kind of a quicker episode, I'm not sure, but it's one of those things that I do actually try to do anyway every 6 months or so, because things in your life can change. And it's really over the last 2 years since I've implemented it, been instrumental in the directions I've taken in my business, the directions I've taken in my personal life, even my relationship with God in so many different ways. This exercise has directed my decisions, my calendar, my day-to-day activities, as well as my ultimate goals and standards that I place in my life. And I just wanted to bring this to you because it's been so impactful for me and for the people that I've seen utilize this. And in some cases, I've seen people go through this process and realize the business they're in is actually the wrong business, or that they need to change some major thing about their business because it's pulling them away from the things that ultimately matter, the things that you should ultimately be focused on in your life. And so in the book, Josh talks about the vertical alignment. I've heard him talk about it in different ways as well. And he trains people on actually doing this. And so the very first thing that you want to do, and this can take sometimes a week or two, to actually go through the full process. But the basics of the task are, first, you want to make a list of everything in your life. By everything, I mean, that could be, entertainment, computers, podcasting, my business, God, my wife or spouse, my kids, my grandchildren, my clothes, my truck, whatever that might be. Make a list of everything that you can think of that's in your life. Entertainment, going to baseball games, hockey games, going to the movies, TV, social media. All of these things that come to top of mind, as well as throughout the week, you're going to be writing down other things that maybe are starting to take up some of your time as well that you might have forgotten about, right? So maybe as I go through the week and I'm writing my planner, I realize, I forgot about my planner, my calendar. This is something that I spend time on. Or I forgot about, I work out. I completely forgot to put that on there. I forgot about the food that I cook, or grocery shopping, or, I invest in cryptocurrencies or something like that, where you're going through your week and you realize that this is something that you forgot to put on the list. And so at the end of the time where you've dedicated to make this list of everything in your life, the next step of that is to put it all in priority order, the order in which it should be. Now, I would, I guess, encourage you to look at that list and see what what the actual order is in your life, even though you've got a priority that naturally everyone's going to, at least on this podcast, put the priority is God, spouse, kids, etc. Right? But I would challenge you to look at it and see, well, what is my actual priority? Where am I spending the most majority of my time? Because that'll kind of be a little bit eye-opening to see where you're spending the majority of your time from that perspective. But at the end of that, put it into priority order. So like I said, you're thinking of God, spouse, kids, maybe freedom. You can put your businesses at that point. You can put whatever you want in the priority order that you see fit as it should be in your life. Now, after that, this is where it really has impacted me the most. You're going to take a red pen when you're looking at that list, and you're going to start at the bottom of that list. So from the least important thing that you placed in your life out of all of those activities. And as you move up that list, you're going to ask this question. And that's where it gets serious, but it's very impactful for everyone that goes through it. You're going to ask, would I die for this thing? So as I'm going up and I say, okay, crypto, no, I wouldn't die for that. No, I wouldn't die for my baseball team or my truck, or, I wouldn't die for my computer, or even my businesses. I wouldn't die for those things, but freedom. Okay. So freedom, I would die for that. I would die for my freedom. So at that point, you draw a red line below the item that you would die for, because everything else above that red line is something that you ultimately would die for. Which the reason that this is impactful, at least for me, is because I want you to look at everything that is above the line. In most cases, it's going to be the most important things in your life. It's going to be God. It's going to be your spouse, your kids, freedom. It could be anything. I mean, for all I know, you could put your Harley Davidson above it, right? But you just never know. But either way, you're going to look at those things that you would die for. And then I want you to look at the items below the line. All the things on there, baseball games, hockey games, shopping, clothes, trucks, whatever it might be, food, your anything, right? Your business. And look at those things below the line. Most of the time, what you'll realize is that the majority of your time, the majority of your money, the majority of the resources you have in your life are living below the line. The majority of the people, in fact, everyone that I know that's gone through this, realizes that the majority of the things in their life are lived below the line, which is very impactful to think, where am I spending my time? Where is it that I'm, what am I accomplishing? What is it that I'm doing in my life that I'm spending all this time on social media, TV, politics, the news, on, even my business? I'm spending all this time on these things that I wouldn't die for. And I'm barely spending any true time on the things above the line, which for me was extraordinarily impactful. It's honestly what has launched me into different ways of outsourcing my business so that I don't have to spend as much time in my main business. It's what got me to do the podcast because I felt God was calling me to do that and I kept pushing it off. It's what got me to do so many other things in my life because I realized I was living life below the line, which means that I was really wasting the life that God gave me, that God blessed me with, that I should be focused on those items above the line. I should be focused on things that are so important that I would die for them. Now, I know this gets serious and it might be a hard thing to really think of, but ultimately you want to start making your decisions based off of the items above the line, right? If you're working in a business that requires you to work 70, 80 hours a week, and you're not spending any time with your wife, and you're not reading your Bible, and you're not praying at all, or you're not fellowshipping with other believers, you're not spending time with God, and you're not focused on your children, and it's taking time away from those super important activities in your life, well, then you need to rethink how your business is operating so that you don't have to work 70 hours a week, so that you can work 40 or you can work 20 for all I know. It depends on what it takes for you to truly live out those things above the line. But it will tremendously impact the way that you decide to run your business. It also impacts the amount of money that you need to make. If you realize that, okay, well, I'm striving to get a bigger house, I'm striving for all of these things that aren't important for those things above the line. If your kids may or may not care about a bigger house. They care about time with you, right? Your spouse, the same thing. God definitely cares about time with you, not about you getting a bigger house or the nicer car or whatever it might be. Even though those might be blessings that you can gain in your life through business, those aren't the most important things. So if everything below the line, or a lot of the things below the line, are taking away all of your time, your money, etc., from the things above the line, the things you would die for, it's time to really rethink the way that you're living your life and rethink the way that you decide to make decisions for even future business opportunities, for the way you're running your business, for decisions on if you should go on vacations or not, or your donations to charitable organizations, or whatever it might be. Those are the things that you will be able to figure out. And I know that you get the gist of it. So, maybe this podcast impacts you and you start thinking, okay, the 5 things in my life I should be living for are this. So I'm not even going to do the exercise. I challenge you, though, to really do the exercise, because whenever you write down everything in your life, or at least as much as you can possibly think of, and you take a look at the fact that you're living your life on the 99% of things that don't matter, that's where it becomes very powerful to truly see it. And I highly recommend writing it down. Don't type it out. There's a little bit more power in writing it down and reading it. So I just wanted to point that out. Please take the time this week. It might take you 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month, to truly go through this exercise, but it will change the way you make your decisions, and it will change the way that you are living your life, especially if you're feeling like you're running ragged, or you feel like there's no purpose in your life, or you feel like the things that you're working for just to make money, just to live. It's going to help you see the reasons why. So I challenge you to take the time to do that. Additionally, I want to point out this verse in Matthew. Actually, let's go with Matthew 6:19 through 6:24. So it says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body, so if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." Now, this is clearly talking about money as the specific issue. If you have a love of money and you are living your life for money only. But I wanted to point out Matthew 6:21, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Maybe you don't have a love of money, but you're using your time on all the things below the line. You're using your time on softball. You're using your time on watching sports games, on television, on social media, even if it's just little pieces here or there. And those things aren't bad for you to be on. I'm on all of those things. I watch those things, and I still struggle at times where I live my life below the line. But it truly does impact the way that you make those decisions, the way that you live your life whenever you start to make your decisions on the things above the line. Right? If you want to sponsor a child in Africa and it costs you $1 a day, or it costs you $5 a day even, and you've been getting coffee every day from a coffee shop for $5, well, it starts to have you think, well, I'm not sponsoring this child in Africa. Instead, I'm buying Starbucks coffee every day. So I'd rather, let's make a decision to focus on the thing that truly is above the line for me, right? And that might not be for everybody. I'm not saying you need to go out and sponsor a child or whatever it might be, or need to do a specific charity or something. But what I am saying is it does make those decisions, even the little ones, easier, because you start to see them all in light of what you are pursuing in your life above the line versus below the line. Because if your time is all spent below that line, then that's where your treasure is, and that's where your heart will be also, versus trying to spend your life above it. pursuing the things of God, of your spouse, of your kids, of freedom, even of whatever it might be in your life that you would die for, your grandchildren. Once you get to that point where you start to see everything through that lens, then your treasure, your time, your money, etc., goes towards those things above the line, which are all things that are God honoring. At least I would assume all things that are God honoring for everyone on this podcast would be above the line. So I really encourage you to take the time this week to make that list of everything in your life. Just no order in particular, just as you see things, as you go throughout your day, write down everything that you're doing, and make that list of everything in your life. Then the next step is to put it into priority order. And then the third step is to take a red pen, and it's just red for a visual reason, but you take a red pen and you work your way up that list until you hit the point where you would die for that thing, draw the line where that is, and then you'll see how much time, money, resources, etc., are you spending on the things below the line versus the things above the line. So anyway, that was the thing that really changed how I make my decisions, the things that change my business, my life, etc. As life takes its ebbs and flows, and you've got all these different things happening in turmoil, and you're trying to make decisions to ultimately correct those things, or you're trying to make decisions to pursue the things above the line, it makes those decisions a lot easier because you're pursuing the things that you're meant to pursue. You're pursuing the things that are truly important to you and truly important to God. And again, as Matthew 6:21 says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out to you. It's not bad to spend a bunch of time on your business, but you need to figure out how your business, how the things below the line are serving the things above the line for you to accomplish those. If that makes sense, I don't want to condemn all of these things like you shouldn't be making money or you shouldn't be doing X, Y, or Z, but you can make your decisions differently so that you can set up your business, set up your life, your employment even, to serve the things above the line as best as possible. So hopefully this helps. Please post in the Facebook group any questions about this. Check out the book Evangelpreneur by Josh Tolley. It's awesome. It's a life-changing book for me, and I highly recommend it. And I'll put a link in the show notes for you. If you need anything, please join the Facebook group. If you aren't in there, post in there your thoughts, your comments, your questions. And then lastly, I'd appreciate it if you left a review on whatever podcasting platform you listen to this to, just because it helps get the word out even more. So thank you all. I hope you all have a blessed week, and have a blessed week. Thank you.